In South Carolina, what seemed like an ordinary evening for a local family quickly turned into a terrifying ordeal. They became unwilling pawns in a bold and dangerous bank heist. The police managed to apprehend the perpetrators, but their leader repeatedly escaped from custody. As law enforcement agencies across 4 states intensified their manhunt, the fugitive remained armed and determined to cling to his freedom at all costs. It all began when a bank employee arrived at her parent home, only to be met with a horrifying sight. Armed intruders had taken her family hostage. These men had one objective: force her to empty the bank vault under the threat of killing her loved ones. "I'm the former head of the FBI's New York field office," an investigator later explained. The authorities managed to capture the mastermind, but keeping him behind bars proved to be another challenge. He was back on the streets in no time, and we were right on his trail. The Savannah River, a natural divider between Augusta, Georgia, and North Augusta, South Carolina, became the backdrop for this high-stakes crime. On a seemingly peaceful Friday afternoon in October 1995, Parker and Brenda Shaw arrived at their home in South Carolina with their granddaughter, Brianna. Every Friday, they cared for the little girl while her mother, Amy Shaw, worked late at a local bank. As Parker attempted to open the garage, he noticed something odd. The remote opener wasn't responding. He decided to step inside and manually lift the door. "I'll open it from the inside, then you two can come in," he told Brenda and Brianna. Unbeknownst to him, danger was lurking just beyond the door. The moment he entered, 2 armed men ambushed him. "Close the door. Get down now," one of them barked. Before he could react, the intruders bound Parker's hands with duct tape and forced him into the bedroom. Meanwhile, outside, Brenda was growing impatient. "What's taking so long?" she murmured, unaware of the danger unfolding inside. Just then, the garage door suddenly creaked open. "Go. Move inside," one of the men shouted, shoving Brenda forward. "Do as I say. I'm not joking. Move it." Terrified, she obeyed, finding herself shoved into the bedroom where her husband was already restrained. "What do you want?" Brenda asked, her voice shaking. "Cooperate, and no one gets hurt," one of the men replied coolly. But the real target of their heist wasn't Parker or Brenda. It was their daughter, Amy, and the bank's vault. The criminals planned to lie in wait for her, holding her family hostage as leverage. For more than an hour, the captors kept the Shaws under strict watch, ensuring no one made any sudden moves. As the clock neared 7 p.m., their leader led Brenda into the living room, leaving another man behind to guard Parker and Brianna. Through the window, they watched and waited. They knew exactly when Amy would arrive. When she finally pulled into the driveway, the nightmare escalated. For Amy Shaw, this Friday evening felt no different from any other. She had finished her shift at the bank and was heading home, completely unaware of the horror awaiting her. As she stepped out of her car and approached the front door, she immediately sensed that something was off. The door, which was usually left unlocked for her, wouldn't budge. Before she had time to process the situation, a masked man appeared from the shadows, shoving a gun in her direction. "Move. Get inside now," he ordered. Amy froze, her heart racing. "What's going on? Where's my family?" she asked, trying to remain calm. "Do what I say and they'll be fine. Now move." Once inside, Amy was forced on the couch, and the ringleader finally revealed his plan. "I've been watching you for a while," he told her. "I know your schedule. I know how your bank operates. And I know you have access to the vault." He wasn't bluffing. His knowledge of her daily routine and the bank security procedures was disturbingly accurate. Then came the real demand. "The bank vault. I need access. What are the codes?" Amy's mind raced. If she refused, her family was in danger. But if she complied too easily, things could get worse. I only know the codes," she stammered. "The second one belongs to my coworker." The man didn't like that answer. "Then we'll go to the bank together," he said coldly. "And you better hope there are no surprises." Amy had no choice. The ringleader ordered his men to stay behind with her family while he accompanied her to the bank. "If anything goes wrong," he warned them, "you know what to do." His men nodded. The implication was clear. If Amy tried anything, her family would pay the price. With a gun discreetly pressed to her side, Amy drove toward the bank, crossing Savannah River into Georgia. She prayed for a way out, but there was none. The ringleader had thought of everything. As they approached the bank's entrance, he barked another order. Make it look normal. No sudden moves. Amy nodded, her hands trembling as she prepared to unlock the doors. Inside, the man ordered her to disable the alarm systems that she had access to. No tricks, he warned. I'm watching you. Amy complied, knowing that any misstep could be deadly. When they finally reached the vault, the real problem emerged. I told you, she whispered. I only have half of the combination. The ringleader wasn't pleased, but he had a backup plan. Call your coworker. Now. Amy hesitated, but with her family's lives on the line, she had no choice. She picked up the phone, her voice as steady as she could make it. Hey, it's me, she said. I need the second code. Her colleague on the other end of the line paused. Something didn't seem right. Why do you need it? The woman asked hesitantly. Before Amy could answer, the ringleader snatched the phone from her hand. Give me the code, he demanded, or I'll come get myself. Fearing for Amy's safety, her co-worker reluctantly gave up the second half of the combination. The ringleader turned back to Amy. Open it. Her fingers shook as she entered both codes, praying that the vault wouldn't open. But after a tense moment, there was a heavy click, and the massive door swung open. The ringleader grinned in satisfaction. He immediately started grabbing stacks of cash, carefully avoiding marked bills and die packs that could be traced. You, stay on the phone, he told Amy's colleague. If you call the cops, she's dead. After loading up more than $86,000 in cash, he turned back to Amy. You're coming with me, he ordered, and don't even think about running. As they exited the bank, Amy felt a glimmer of hope. She knew that security cameras near the ATM had captured his face. But for now, she had no choice but to follow his orders and pray for a way out. Amy's hands trembled as she steered the car back toward her parents' house, the ringleader sitting beside her, his gun hidden from view but very much present. The air in the car was suffocatingly tense. She could feel his eyes on her, watching for the slightest sign of hesitation or defiance. Drive normal, he ordered. No sudden stops, no weird turns. Just get us there. Amy complied, her thoughts racing. Had the bank's cameras caught his face? Had anyone noticed her distress? Would the police already be on their way? As they crossed the Savannah River back into South Carolina, the ringleader pulled out a burner phone and dialed his men inside the house. We got it, he said simply. Get ready. For Amy, those two words made her stomach drop. Get ready for what? Inside the house, Parker and Brenda Shaw sat stiffly on the couch, their granddaughter Brianna curled up beside them. Too young to fully understand what was happening, but aware enough to know something was wrong. The masked intruders paced, their nerves showing. Time's almost up, one of them muttered, glancing at the clock. Then the phone rang. One of the men answered, nodded, and turned to the hostages. She's on her way back, he said. Stay put. The Shaws barely breathed. Minutes later, headlights washed over the living room window, and Amy's car pulled into the driveway. The moment she stepped inside, her mother rushed toward her, but before she could reach her, one of the criminals shoved her back down. Stay where you are, he snapped. Amy could barely look at her family. She knew they had been sitting here, terrified, for hours, waiting to see if she would return alive. The ringleader threw the duffel bag onto the table, the sound of cash rustling inside. Done, he told his men. We're out of here. Relief almost swept over Amy until she saw the look pass between the criminals. What about them? One of the masked men asked, jerking his chin toward the family. Amy's heart stopped. The ringleader hesitated, then shook his head. Not here. Too risky. Let's go. It wasn't much of a reassurance, but it was enough. The two other men exchanged glances, then reluctantly backed toward the door. Amy's mother grabbed her daughter's hand, as if making sure she was really there. But just as the criminals were about to walk out, the front porch light flashed on, and the unmistakable sound of a car engine approached. Amy's stomach lurched. Someone else was arriving. The criminals froze. Through the window, headlights cut across the driveway, illuminating the side of the house. Parker exhaled sharply. "It's my daughter," he whispered. "And her husband." Amy's sister, her brother-in-law, and their young daughter had arrived, completely unaware of the nightmare they were walking into. Before they could even step out of their car, one of the masked men threw open the front door and dragged them inside at gunpoint. The Shaw family's worst fear had just become reality. Now, there were 6 hostages instead of 3, and with more people in the house. The criminals were growing edgier by the second. "We have to go," one of them hissed. But the ringleader hesitated. His eyes flicked toward Amy. She knew what he was thinking. She had seen too much. She had heard too much. And now, her entire family had too. Would they really let them all live? Amy had to think fast, because their time was running out. The room was thick with tension. The Shaw family held together, their wide eyes tracking every movement of the masked criminals. Now, with 6 hostages instead of 3, the situation was spiraling out of control. The intruders hadn't planned for this many people. Amy could see the cracks forming. Their leader's plan was unraveling, and the more unpredictable things became, the more dangerous the men grew. One of them muttered under his breath, shifting uncomfortably. Too many of them. Another gripped his gun tighter, his body language stiff, like he was debating whether to end this the hard way. Amy felt a cold wave of panic. Were they about to get rid of witnesses? Then the ringleader snapped, cutting through the tension. "No, we're leaving." The others hesitated, glancing between him and the terrified hostages. "We take what we came for." "That's it," he said firmly. "No more problems." Amy didn't dare breathe. Would they actually let them go? The ringleader turned to his men. "Pack the cash. Let's move." One of them lingered too long, his gaze flicking toward the hostages, his gun still raised. Amy's father braced himself, shielding the children as much as he could. The ringleader noticed. "I said move," he barked, grabbing the man's arm and shoving him toward the door. Finally, the intruders backed toward the exit, their masks concealing whatever final thoughts they had about sparing the family. They were almost out, almost gone forever, when something went wrong. A neighbor's dog started barking wildly outside, its deep, furious growl echoing through the night. Then, the sound of a car approaching. The men froze. "Who the hell is that?" one of them hissed. Amy's stomach lurched. Was it the police? Had someone called for help without her realizing it? The ringleader acted fast. "Forget it. We're done. Go." They rushed out the door, disappearing into the night. The Shaw family sat frozen in silence, listening, waiting to see if they would come back. Then outside, the unmistakable sound of screeching tires. Amy's heart pounded as she rushed to the window, just in time to see their getaway car skidding backward, straight into the ditch. They were stuck. "They can't get out." Amy whispered, eyes wide. One of the criminals kicked the door open, cursing loudly. "We need to run. Now!" Abandoning the car, they bolted into the woods, disappearing into the trees just as the sound of sirens in the distance filled the air. Amy turned to her father. "They're gone." For the first time all night, Parker let out a shaky breath. But it wasn't over yet. The police were closing in, and now a multi-state manhunt had officially begun. The Shaw family sat frozen, listening to the sound of sirens growing louder. The criminals had vanished into the woods, but their escape wasn't clean. They had left behind a trail. Within minutes, police vehicles flooded the neighborhood, their red and blue lights slicing through the dark. Armed officers rushed inside, weapons raised, scanning for threats. "Is everyone okay?" a deputy asked urgently. Parker nodded shakily, still holding on to his granddaughter. "They're gone." They ran. Amy could barely process what had happened. She felt like she was still suffocating, even though the danger had passed. The police wasted no time securing the house and getting statements from the shaken family. Amy, still trembling, told them everything. How the men had forced her to rob the bank, how they had held her family hostage, how they had fled on foot after wrecking their stolen getaway car. That car, now abandoned in the ditch, became the investigators' first big break. Crime scene technicians swarmed the vehicle, searching for evidence. Inside, they found a loaded .357 Magnum, a shotgun, and stacks of stolen cash. Even more valuable, fingerprints on the steering wheel. "These guys were in a hurry," one of the officers said. "They left us plenty to work with." But the biggest clue was still out there, running. The police immediately expanded their search radius, sending K-9 units and helicopters into the dense forest surrounding the neighborhood. The fugitives had a head start, but they were on foot, and that meant they wouldn't get far. Then, just a few miles away, a crucial break. A deputy off duty was driving home when he heard the suspect descriptions over the radio. 3 men, 2 likely on foot, 1 possibly in a getaway vehicle. Just as he passed a dimly lit street, he spotted 2 men walking along the roadside, looking nervous, glancing over their shoulders. His instincts kicked in immediately. He pulled over. "Evening, fellas," he called out. "Where you coming from?" The 2 men stiffened. "Just heading home," one of them said quickly. "We were playing basketball at the church." The deputy frowned. There was a problem with that story. There was no basketball court anywhere near that church. He kept his tone casual. "That's so? You got a ball with you?" Neither of them answered. Instead, one of them took a small step back, as if considering a run for it. The deputy's hand went to his holster. "Let's not do anything stupid. Hands where I can see 'em." Backup arrived within minutes. The 2 suspects were searched. It wasn't long before the officers found something that sealed their fate. Cash, still bundled in the bank straps, stuffed in one of their pockets. They were arrested on the spot. At the FBI field office, Special Agent Jerry Jones wasted no time interrogating them. He knew that separating suspects was the fastest way to get one of them to crack. "We put them in separate rooms," Jones recalled. "If one of them starts talking, the other starts wondering if he's being betrayed. That's when they break." And sure enough, one of them did. Faced with the possibility of decades in prison, or worse, the death penalty, he confessed. But there was one problem. Their leader, the mastermind, was still out there. Who was in charge? Jones pressed. The suspect hesitated. Finally, he muttered a name. Christopher J. Berg. Jones recognized it instantly. Berg wasn't just another criminal. He was known for being smart, dangerous, and worst of all, a master escape artist. "We knew we had to move fast," Jones said, "because once Berg knew we were onto him, he'd disappear." Christopher J. Berg was still out there, and the FBI knew he wouldn't be easy to catch. Unlike his captured accomplices, he was smart, careful, and had a history of slipping away from the law. The agents wasted no time tracking down his last known addresses and associates. One lead stood out, his mother's house. "She might not know exactly where he is," Special Agent Jerry Jones explained, "but if anyone could convince him to turn himself in, it was her." The agents asked Berg's mother to call her son. She agreed. Dialing his number, she kept her voice calm. "Chris, listen to me," she said softly. "You need to stop running. It's over. Just turn yourself in." There was a long silence on the other end. Then, finally, Berg responded. "I didn't do anything," he muttered. "They don't have anything on me." "Chris," his mother pleaded, "don't make this worse." It took some convincing. But just after 1 a.m., Berg finally walked into the sheriff's office, his girlfriend by his side. The moment he stepped in, FBI agents moved in fast, cuffing him before he could think twice. At first, he refused to talk, insisting he had nothing to do with the crime. But when questioned about his whereabouts, his story kept changing. First, he claimed he was in Mount Vernon, Georgia, the night of the robbery. Then, when agents spoke to his girlfriend, she contradicted his story completely. Berg quickly changed it again, now saying he had been in Atlanta, dealing drugs, as if that was somehow better. But the FBI wasn't buying it. They had his name from his own crew, forensic evidence, and the stolen money recovered from the other suspects. It was enough. Berg was officially charged with armed bank robbery, kidnapping, and grand theft auto, charges that would likely put him away for life. For a moment, it seemed like justice had finally caught up with him. But Christopher J. Berg wasn't done yet. Just weeks later, he pulled off the impossible. He escaped. It happened in a small county jail. where he was being held before trial. The facility was undergoing renovations, and Berg, always looking for an opening, found one. On March 27, 1996, a guard making rounds noticed something wrong. A cell door was open. A head count confirmed the worst. 2 inmates were missing. Berg had escaped, and he hadn't done it alone. His cellmate, Jerome Freer's son Bay, a convicted serial bank robber, had broken out with him. Authorities launched a massive manhunt, sending search teams, helicopters, and K-9 units into surrounding forests and swamps. But the 2 men had planned well. They had outside help, Jones later admitted. Someone left a car for them, and by the time we locked the area down, they were gone. Now, the stakes were even higher. Berg and Bay weren't just on a run. They were desperate, armed, and willing to do anything to stay free. And law enforcement knew exactly what they'd do next. They needed money, Jones said, and we had a pretty good idea where they were going to get it. They were going to rob again, just a day after their escape. The prediction came true. A small-town bank in Lumberton, North Carolina, was hit by 2 masked gunmen. Surveillance footage captured the entire heist. The robbers stormed in, waved their weapons, and ordered the tellers to empty the drawers. It was a fast, brutal job. In under 3 minutes, the 2 men had $4,500 in cash and were gone. The FBI immediately recognized the pattern. 2 men, armed, efficient, and the getaway car? It matched a vehicle that had been stolen just hours earlier from a nearby home. They were moving fast, Special Agent Jerry Jones said. And we knew if we didn't catch them soon, they'd leave a trail of robberies and possibly bodies behind them. The chase was on. Over the next 2 weeks, law enforcement agencies across the East Coast reported a series of bank robberies. Virginia, Maryland, New Jersey. Each crime had the same signature: quick, aggressive, and highly calculated. One thing became clear. Berg and Bay weren't just running. They were thriving. They used stolen cars, fake identities, and burner phones to stay ahead of police. But the FBI was closing in. We tracked them through their crimes. Jones said, every robbery gave us more information, where they were, where they might go next. And then, finally, a breakthrough. A caller tipped off the FBI. Bay had been spotted at a motel in Paterson, New Jersey. Agents moved in immediately, surrounding the building and preparing for a dangerous takedown. For hours, they waited, watching the room where Bay was hiding out. Then, just after sunset, he stepped outside and headed toward his car. It was the perfect moment. Move in now, an agent ordered. SWAT team swarmed. Hands up, step away from the vehicle. Bay panicked. Instead of surrendering, he jumped back into the car, locking the doors and reaching for something under his seat. The agents weren't taking chances. They smashed the window, pulled him out, and pinned him to the ground. Inside his car, they found a loaded Glock .40 caliber pistol and $1,500 in cash. Bay was caught, but Berg, still out there. And the FBI wasn't about to let him slip away. With Jerome Freer's son Bay finally in custody, the FBI's full focus shifted to Christopher J. Berg. Unlike his partner, Berg was a ghost. He was smart, careful, and knew how to stay one step ahead. We knew he was watching the news, Special Agent Jerry Jones recalled. As soon as Bay got caught, Berg knew he was next. The FBI expanded their search, distributing his photo nationwide. Then a crucial tip came in. A woman called the FBI, claiming Berg was hiding at a pastor's home in Atlanta, Georgia. The pastor doesn't know who he really is, she explained. He's been helping out around the church. Agents moved in immediately, setting up a surveillance operation outside the house. To avoid drawing attention, they posed as landscapers, watching and waiting. Then, on May 9th, 1996, a car pulled into the driveway. Behind the wheel was Christopher J. Berg. Agents acted fast. FBI, hands up. Berg froze, caught completely off guard. Unlike Bay, he didn't fight. He simply raised his hands. What's going on? He asked, feigning innocence. Agents searched him and found $2,000 hidden in his sock, likely the last of his stolen money. It's over, Berg, Jones told him, and for a moment, it seemed like it really was. But Christopher J. Berg wasn't done yet. Weeks later, he escaped again. This time, he saw out the bars of his cell, crawled through a ventilation shaft, and somehow made it past 2 layers of razor wire fencing. Authorities launched another massive manhunt, scouring forests, swamps, and abandoned buildings. Then, on the 4th day, a deputy spotted a man limping near a rural road. He looked exhausted, the officer later recalled, like he hadn't slept in days. Backup arrived, and officers surrounded him. Berg collapsed to his knees, finally out of options. This time, there would be no escape. In court, federal prosecutors pushed for the maximum penalty, arguing that Berg was a danger to society who had no respect for the law. The judge agreed. Berg was sentenced to life in federal prison, plus 5 extra years for his escape attempts. He was sent to Leavenworth Federal Penitentiary, one of the most secure prisons in the U.S. Even behind bars, he tried to escape again, this time by attempting to slip under a truck, leaving the facility. But the guards caught him before he even made it to the gate. As one investigator later put it, Christopher Berg isn't Houdini. And no matter how many times he tries, he's never getting out again.